Today's meeting is about the advertising signs bylaw submissions and the dialogue control bylaw submissions. So I'd just like to start the meeting with Karakia and Fairly if you stand.
E te whānau hui whaia te mātauranga kia mārama, kia whai take ngā mahi katoa, tū maia, tū kaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa. For this gathering seek knowledge for understanding, have purpose in all that you do, stand tall, be strong, let us show respect for each other.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. So now I'd like to ask for the apologies. I've got one for Neil Land.
Yes.
Any other apologies?
Councillor Rebel.
Councillor Rebel. Any other apologies? Someone like to move the apologies?
I'll move. I'll second.
John, second. All those in favour?
Aye.
I'd like to now go to the resolution on page 3. The suggested resolution is that we receive the council hearing submissions on proposed amendments to the advertising and signs bylaw, report dated 1st of February 2023, and receive the submissions made on the advertising and signs bylaw statement of proposal. Do we have a mover?
Move.
I'll second.
John, second. Kelly. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. That later.
Yeah.
So good morning, submitters. Today we welcome you along to hear your submissions. We've read your submissions that you've formally sent to us, but if you'd like to add more to it, we've got a 5-minute window for you each to discuss or outlay those concerns and issues to us. We've asked at the end of 5 minutes any questions for clarification. And following today's hearing, we'll be taking these information forward to a package put together by staff for determinations. So I'd just like to start the morning off with Andrew Gibson. Is he available?
Through the chair, I.
Yeah, we'll have from Andrew. Okay. Penny Clayton.
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning, Penny.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
We've got 5 minutes and we'll be sitting here and happy to hear your comments. You may start.
I will not take 5 minutes. I support the proposed changes, or as a business owner, I support the proposed changes to the signage bylaw. I do propose, however, a change to the definition of real estate sign. Currently, it's to include banners, signs and billboards on private property advertising real estate. I would propose that real estate sign is defined as publicly visible signs that advertise for sale, lease, rent or auction, the whole or part of land or premises, or advertise a real estate business, brand or individual salesperson. So it's just tweaking the definition of real estate sign to reduce the proliferation of what appears to be hoardings advertising salespeople and businesses.
Right.
That's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do I have any questions? Clarification? Thank you, Penny. Thank you very much. We've noted those comments and thank you for presenting.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to, is Brett Harris there?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning, Brett.
Morning.
Page 21 for the people to look at the submission provided. Brett, good morning. You're welcome to tell us your views. Sure.
So I'm appearing on behalf of the Hahei Residents and Ratepayers Association. In general, we support the signage bylaw. It's I think a good job that's been done on it. There's a few areas that we think though could be added or modified. So if I just quickly go through those, the first one relates to part 1, clause 5, which is the purpose of the bylaw and the inclusion of new clause 5C, which is great because it's talking about avoiding nuisance and protecting amenity values. But we think it could be strengthened a wee bit because the most sensitive part of nuisance and amenity values relates to residential amenity and visual amenity. So I've suggested in my item 1 there the inclusion of to clause 5C of particularly including residential amenity and visual amenity. We could, in terms of the way the bylaw talks about signage, it's quite general, and I think it's worthy to actually separate out and define and treat differently signs, which I interpret to be advertising related to products or services that are on a particular site. So they're on-premise signs versus billboards, which are off-site signs, and particularly third-party advertising. They have quite different effects on people's perception of amenity, and I explained the reason for that in my submission. We consider it important to differentiate between illuminated signs and digital billboards or digital signs. So illuminated is what we expect with floodlights or even internal illumination. Digital is a whole different ballgame again, because you've basically got a big TV up there that has an advertisement that might change every 8 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever, and so quite different effects on amenity. I've made some suggested point 7 of my submission is probably the most critical, and that's where I suggest giving some teeth to the purpose of the 5C purpose. So what I've suggested there is that because we've got the objectives now of avoiding nuisance and maintaining and protecting amenity values, that we add to that by saying that, and particularly in the first table of Schedule 1, that the provision of digital billboards and digital signs and illuminated billboards and illuminated signs not be allowed within coastal living, extra and low density residential village and waterfront zones. I think that's probably the key part of our submission. The reason that I've suggested that is that digital signs and illuminated signs and digital billboards and illuminated billboards are incongruous with with those zones, those sort of very sensitive zones, and that there's a much higher probability of those signs and billboards adversely impacting either residential amenity or visual amenity or community character. I've made some suggested modifications to the technical aspects of billboard or sign operation or image content, and that comes, my day job is I'm a traffic engineer, and I've spent most of the past 5 years doing road safety assessments of signs and particularly digital billboards. So I'm coming from that background to suggest some best practice modifications, and so a small addition to clause 8.3c about signs or images not causing any detraction from or confusion with official signs, road signs. Schedule 5, which talks about image transitions, it says you can have, this is for a digital billboard where it changes from one image to the next, that it can be up to half a second. Actually, it should just be half a second. If you have up to, that implies that you can have an instantaneous transition, and they're the probably most dangerous transition for digital billboards, because they create a visual flick that can catch the involuntary attention of a driver. And I've also suggested in Schedule 5 to remove the provision for sequential images, 3 sequential images. All that does is create a situation where drivers particularly are going to they only get part of the message in the first image, and they're going to keep looking at it to see what the rest of it's going to say. There's no need for sequential images. I think that should just be deleted. And my final
30
point.
seconds, Brad, 30 seconds.
Yep. One more point, and that's enforcement. At the moment, the bylaw's silent on enforcement, and I think it's necessary in some regard. We've had an issue with a lot of signs in Hahei, and we've tried to find out which of those are legal and which aren't, and no one can tell us. And there's also reluctance in neighbours and so forth to dob in people. I think some thought needs to be given to enforcement, and that's our submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Very comprehensive. Thank you. Any questions?
Gary's
I've
got his
got-
hand up.
Garrett, yes.
Yes, you raise a valid point I hadn't really thought about, but digital, of course, there's this light pollution, which can be in a zone, and you've got an area, you say you don't want certain areas near the water and all sorts of other places, because the light pollution can cause problems with marine life and all sorts of other things. So it really should be in an area where it's not going to affect residents or marine life or trees or other things, because it really causes real problems, doesn't it?
Yep, absolutely. So that applies to digital and illuminated signs. They both have those effects.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Martin.
Yeah, just picking up on your enforcement point. So would you see maybe some sort of, I don't know, proactive monitoring, for want of a better phrase, from council to try to avoid that, that sort of stigma of someone dobbing someone in?
Yeah, I think, and it doesn't need to be like every week. If you had a once a year sort of somebody going around and just checking signs to ensure that they are legally established, that would go a very long way. Either that or have on a website, council website somewhere, a list of signs that are approved, so we can work out which ones aren't.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Brett. Very comprehensive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to now ask Tracy Madison, is she available?
Yes. Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Morning, welcome Tracy. You can turn your camera on if you'd like. Or...
Yeah, I think I've got that on. Yep.
Okay. Okay, Tracy, it's all yours. 5 minutes.
Right. Really, there's 3 submission points. Having used the bylaw numerous occasions over the years, there are sort of 3 main parts to the bylaw, which I still feel that requires clarification for ease of use or some amending. One of them, the first one, is the definition of sign. It is requested that any traffic directional signs, which are like the little arrows or entry-exit little signs, be excluded from the definitions of signs, so that they are not having to be included into the overall size and area of signs within the schedules. It's, for example, the service station, petrol station signs, there's those little arrows. At the moment, the definition of signs includes any symbol to attract attention, and that's just adding to the need to have to apply for an exemption for little minute but important signs or traffic directional signs. The next one is when applying for specific exemptions. I'm still not sure how that process works. We often put in applications to council, and we've got one at the moment, which we include all the signage associated with it. But then you've got the bylaw, which is separate to the resource consent. Do we still need to apply for a separate sign exemption when it doesn't meet the bylaw? Or is that going to be included? Can that be processed by the resource consent planner under the one application? So that's sort of in section 16 of the bylaw. And then the final one is Schedule 1, where it has the various schedules for each sort of zone or area of the district. At the moment, it's the submission that these controls for the residential, rural lifestyle, recreation, active and passive open space zones, where you've got an underlying zone of residential, that those sign controls should not apply to commercial sites or activities identified within a site development plan, a structure plan, or as a site-specific activity under sections 25, 26 and 27 of the proposed district plan. There are several sites that have been identified as being appropriate for a commercial activity and therefore should be linked to the commercial, gateway, industrial and light industrial signage controls within the bylaw. That schedule is more appropriate to commercial activities. Otherwise, there's also, for example, Whitianga Waterways, they've got the commercial activity area identified on their structure plan diagram, but it's got all underlying zone of residential. So any signage associated with the mobile service station, they've got an application at the moment for hunting and fishing store. Any signs that are over and above what's been listed for residential zones is requiring resource consent. Where it's appropriate that they're along state highways, so they should be subject to the lettering height, minimum lettering heights, that sort of information, rather than residential. And they've been established as part of the district plan, these site development plans, structure plans and site-specific activities. So it's the amenity associated with these activities have already been addressed, where there's signage associated with these activities, and they're therefore more appropriately located within the schedule that relates to industrial and commercial areas. And finally, in that second table of Schedule 1, there is a bit of a error in the description. At the moment, it talks about commercial gateway and pedestrian core zones. There's a commercial zone and a gateway zone, but not a commercial gateway zone. So that could be a bit confusing for people looking to see what zone they're in and what table relates to that zone.
Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
Well done, that's very comprehensive, and we've made some notes for sure around that. Any questions? No questions. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just now move and say, is Andrew Gibson here? Has he arrived or online?
Through the chair, he's indicated that he is unable to make it.
Unable to make it. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'd like to move now on to Alistair Brickle. Alistair, you online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Turn your mic on.
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Welcome, Alistair.
Camera should be on in a second, hopefully.
Sorry.
Is that working?
That's working.
Can you see me or hear me? You can't see me. Well, that's a blessing.
Okay. There you go.
Hello.
Well done. Welcome, Alistair.
Okay, as long as you can hear me, that's the main thing.
Right.
Okay, you'll have a copy.
If you start to break up, we might ask you to turn the camera off because you're a little bit breaking up a little bit, but we'll see how we go, shall we?
Okay, let me know how we go. All right. So you'll have a copy of my submission there. It's on behalf, I'm speaking on behalf of the Kutunu Dark Sky Trust, of which I'm a trustee. As most of you will hopefully be aware, we are trying to establish a dark sky community on the Kutunu Peninsula. And this is requires accreditation by the International Dark Sky Association in Tucson, Arizona. Now, they have quite strict conditions about a lot of things, lighting, and one of them is with advertising signs. So that's why I'm submitting. And you would have seen in the submission the suggestions which I have made. One of them is that for signs, lighting signs, advertising signs, lighting from below the sign pointing upwards to the sign is prohibited.
Now, the reason for that basically is most of the light is wasted. It goes up into the sky and causes light pollution. Now, I think Deli Enrique, you're there, so you will be familiar with Buffalo Beach Road. And there's a motel, I think it used to be called the PSA Motel. I'm not sure what it's called now. It's on the left as they come in towards Curatuna, and it has an advertising sign outside and two very bright lights illuminating the sign, but also illuminating the sky and drivers driving along. So that's the sort of sign which are very definitely prohibited. So there are, I think, 3 or 4 conditions which I've put in my submission, which the International Dark Sky Association requires. There is another one, a 5th one, which I didn't put in because it is possibly going to be somewhat contentious. It's to do with signs, and the regulation actually reads, sign illumination shall be extinguished completely 1 hour after sunset and remain off until 1 hour before sunrise. And the reason for that is obvious because it's lighting up the sky all night when you don't need that. It could be a bit contentious because some businesses that operate at night might want their clients to come by, for example, us at Stargazers B&B, but we don't actually have a sign. But restaurants might be wanting clients to know where they are after dark. And also some motels might be waiting for late arriving guests or whatever. So we are going to discuss this with the International Dark Sky Association. We had a meeting planned for this week, but it's been postponed now. But we will seek some clarification on that. But this is just a heads up that we might actually need to have a clause in there to that effect. And if you like, I can send you the exact wording through, I guess, what to Ariana or whatever for your consideration. But that's just a heads up on that one. So that's basically what we want. We want to have lighting controlled on signage in the dark sky area at least. And
we've lost you,
our
Alistair.
grand plan,
Alistair.
if I can call it that, is a plan from Rangi also southwards. Eventually,
Alistair, mate, turn your camera off. Alistair, can you hear me?
yeah.
Can you
Okay,
turn
the camera's
your
off now.
camera
Is that any better?
You're breaking up. That's better. Try now.
Camera's off. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you hear any of that, or do we start again?
No, we're back with you. Keep going.
It was only the last 30 seconds, Alistair.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's basically it.
But turn your camera off, please.
Okay, all right, thanks, Deli. Yeah, so that's it's off, isn't it? Oh, it's back on again. Hang on,
It's not off yet.
I've turned it off once already. There we go, it's off. How's that?
No,
Is that working?
no, now you're better.
It's off
Okay.
as far as I can see.
Well done.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, well, I think that's basically it. So basically, we want those conditions in my submission adopted, and possibly also the 5th one with the hours of operation of signage to be restricted to 1 hour after turning off 1 hour after sunset and on again 1 hour before sunrise.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your submission. Any questions?
Do you want me to send that last condition in with the exact wording to you guys, to Ariana or whoever I sent it to? Would that be helpful?
Yes, that would be great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, thanks for the chance to submit.
Hold on a second, Alistair, just got a question here. Martin.
Yeah, hi, Alistair. Yeah, I just wanted to check. So what you've talked about is a light shining on a sign. Is there any, does the dark sky guidelines say anything about signs that are actually like internally lit, like that have like a light in
Yes,
behind?
yes, it does. Yes, it does very much so. My point number 3, it says all signs, whether internally or externally illuminated, and it has the 100 candelas per square meter designation for those. Yeah.
And presumably they would be good if those were shielded from the light going up, or do they just mostly tend to go straight out?
Well, correct, yes, but of course they're vertical surfaces, illuminated, totally illuminated, like a flat screen TV, I suppose you could say. So the light goes everywhere, including upwards. So that's why they're not particularly popular.
Okay, thank you.
Light up everything.
Thank you,
At
Alistair.
least with.
Very much.
I had
Okay,
my
thank
hand
you.
up.
Thanks.
Have you got one, Gary? Sorry.
Yeah. What hit a chord with me was you mentioned about signage being directed downwards. Just a question for you, because I'm sure you'll be aware. Unfortunately, the council sometimes puts in lights. We've just had a recent example in Onimana with the lights which are shining, not meant to be downwards, but are shining very brightly. What is the cost difference between a downward shining light and an upward, one of the general ones that shine all over the place? Is there much price difference? Do you know?
Do you mean you're talking about street lights or are you talking about
The lead bulb,
advertising?
the bulb.
I'm not sure whether you're talking about street lights or.
Well, I'm giving that as one example.
Gary, this is not really a clarification. We can just look at that later, but
It's just a general question. Do you know the difference? Is there a difference in costing between a downward shining light or one that shines generally? That could be any sort of light.
we'll look into that. Alison doesn't need to answer that.
All right, I'm not an expert on this, but sorry, I'm not an expert on this, but of course the street lights, the new LED ones are flat and they point downwards, so I'm not sure of the costing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that, Alistair. Kevin White.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Alistair.
Thanks.
Kevin?
Through the chair, I've just been informed that will not be attending.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Ben, we'd like you to come forward, please, up to the front. And
Morning, everybody. Morning. I have a hearing difficulty, and that's why I've come, because if I'm not on that, I can't understand anything, and I'm going to have real problems with some of your questions, but we'll just have to work it out. I presume that you've got my submission in front of you. I won't read through the whole thing. I just want to go through some of the things that I think are really, really important. Amenity. The fact that we're actually now considering amenity, I think, is a wonderful thing. Finally, we're getting to the point where we're looking at what the Coromandel is all about. For most of us, the beauty, the pleasantness, the amenity is why we want to live here. And I think it is a time that we should be protecting and passing on to future generations. Amenity, the beauty of our district, is a fundamental of our economy. It attracts visitors and tourists and creates our most significant industry. It is our golden goose. Our golden goose is under constant attack. In our district plan, we take the areas that have outstanding beauty and we call them outstanding natural features and landscapes. And then we seem to disregard and devalue the rest of them. And yet the whole of our region has outstanding beauty. We allow structures in the most prominent places because individual property rights trump public good. And the amenity of our area is a public good. We place the most ugly activities, our industrial areas, at the gateway of all our towns. And for our tourism, for this most important industry, we go and present the ugliness of what we do at the forefront of our towns. And signage is something that is growing. It's not a particularly great problem at the moment, but it is increasing. And I think at this point, we should be actually addressing the fact that it is increasing. I think if you have a look at the main highway between the Turua turn-off and the Kopu Bridge, you can see how signage is actually destroying our landscapes. We used to come from Auckland, and one of the wonderful things was coming through that area and seeing Table Mountain, seeing the vista in front of us, and realising that we were coming home to the beauty of the place that we live in. Those huge signs now obstruct and detract from all of that. And I think these are issues that we really need to constantly consider. The whole purpose of advertising signage is to attract attention and become the focal point within a landscape in which it is set. Successful signage is designed to appear much larger than its actual size and purposefully create distraction from all other aspects of its setting. So that's what I want to say about amenities. I think this is my pet thing. I think that we need to protect that. I want to talk about governance. I've written a little bit about where I think that governance should go, that we should be looking at the community making decisions for itself. I think there are dangers in that communities can be self-centered and not having a wide overview. But I do think that it's important that a community has a chance to actually say what they think, and then it can be properly considered outside parochial interests. One of the best aspects, I think, of governance and TCDC is consent track. I think it's a wonderful thing because it does, it means that the thing's transparent. In Auckland, for example, I used to live in Titirangi, where we just absolutely love those cars and stuff, right? People in Titirangi, as the more and more population that they find next door, the beautiful car that they really treasured is now being removed because somebody has decided that they're going to put a building there. A council planner has decided that it's okay, and so it's passed. The first thing the neighbour knows, or the community knows about it, is that it's being destroyed. And the same applies as the intensification and housing. People wake up to find the building has started next door that is going to block this.
30 seconds, Ben.
Yeah, I guess you're going to have to read most of it anyway. Enforcement. I think we should have a register of existing signs that are permitted and the reasons and the time limits that those consents are given so that the whole community can see. And I think we need to have proper enforcement. Everything is written in my submission. Thank you.
Any questions?
Oh, questions.
Nothing, Gary, anything from you? No, okay, thank you very much.
Nothing, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Look, I think that's the end of the advertising Signs Bylaw hearings.
Yes, correct. Through the chair, we do have Ben speaking for the dog control policy, but we will have to wait
Yes.
10 minutes.
Okay. So
We can adjourn.
we can adjourn. How long should we take? One in 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
You can adjourn to right up to 10.
Yeah, on the first one's at 10 o'clock.
Well, I think it's most fair to the other submitters if we adjourn.
Well, Ben's here, so if we started early, we can take Ben first. And then we might have
Will the other dog submitters want to see Ben's presentation if they won't log in? So, yeah,
So we'll adjourn now, meeting at 10 o'clock. And,
sorry, Ben, I'll make you wait around.
We will, give you a cup of tea.